Hey, what's up guys? It's Randy Rektor and welcome back to another video. Today we're going over 5 of the biggest recording misconceptions, recording myths that I've heard in my career as a recording engineer. These are in no particular order, so let's go ahead and get started with myth number 1. Okay, myth number 1 is doubling audio is as simple as copying and pasting. So yes, that is an actual double, but in recording, when we're talking about doing a double, like a doubled vocal or a doubled guitar part, it's not as simple as actually just copying and pasting, because what that does is actually just doubles the amplitude. So when you take 2 sine waves and you pair them together and they're the exact same, it's just doubling the amplitude. The next question I know everyone always has is, well, can't you just copy and paste it and then offset one? You can definitely do that. If you do it just a little bit, you get tons of phase issues. Like I'll demonstrate, so you hear this now. This is with it offset just a tiny little bit. It gets really gross and phasey. If you offset it a little bit more, then you start to get like a slap back and it starts to sound more like a delay than it does a double. A double is really a different technique. What's happening is, because we're human and we all make mistakes, when we double or try to double a part perfectly, there are little tiny variations in the pitch and the timing, and that's gonna give us that really cool doubled effect. Quick tip here, if you did just record one vocal take and you're like, oh man, I didn't get a double, what can I do? You can actually duplicate that take and then put a chorus effect on it and make sure that the mix knob is set to 100%. It's not gonna sound quite as nice as an authentic double, but it'll definitely do the trick if you're in a pinch. Okay, myth number 2, it's that stereo is better. There are a lot of instruments that I personally believe that you should just record in mono. And I think the tendency to record in stereo comes from seeing big studios with like 15 mics set up around an instrument. A lot of the time they're doing that just to capture the air when it's happening. If you have Jack Johnson in the studio, you don't want to have to call him back in because you want to move a microphone. Some of the top engineers out there will just pick one microphone that they really like and that fits the mix the best it can. It's important to note that no matter how phase aligned your 2 microphones are, if you're using 2 microphones, you're always introducing phase into your mix. Another big consideration is movement. So if you put a mic over the sound hole and you put one over frets and you have them panned far off of each other, if that musician moves it all like this, you're gonna get fluctuations in the levels in your mix. I've actually experienced this before. I was like, oh man, why is the guitar kind of going all over the place? And I realized it's because the performer was kind of rocking in his chair a little bit, and just that little bit of movement was enough to totally throw off the directionality of the mix. So if you can record in mono, just record mono. Okay, myth number 3, that's that dynamic microphones are better for untreated spaces. This is one that I see all over forums, and it kind of drives me a bit crazy because I understand why people are saying it, because dynamic microphones tend to be less sensitive than condenser microphones. So for that reason, it does make sense. People think, well, if I have a dynamic microphone, it's not gonna pick up the reflections of the room as much. And to some degree that is true, but this is totally neglecting proper mic technique and proper gain structure and stuff like that. But the challenge is, regardless of how sensitive your microphone is, your source, like your voice, is the same level. So that just means if you have a dynamic microphone, you have to crank the gain more, which will be picking up the same amount of things in the room and will also be introducing more noise into your signal. So that's the one that I think people really miss in that topic. So I have a SM57 here, and I've got a Rode NTG3 shotgun just out of frame here. I'm just touching it right there. And I've got the levels set the exact same on my interface. You be the judge. I've taken a listen to this, so I know sort of how I feel, but take a listen to this. I'm gonna put them in the exact same spot. Right now you're listening to the Rode NTG3, which you've been listening to for this whole video. And I'm gonna switch over, and now you're listening to the SM58 rather. SM58 right here, and Rode NTG3 here. Back to the SM58 right here, and the Rode NTG3 right here. Okay, so that's with both of these set at the exact same level. You'll notice this microphone's a lot quieter. That's just how it is. So I've gone ahead and boosted the gain to match these as best I can, and we'll do that experiment again. So right now you're listening to the SM58, and right now you're listening to the Rode NTG3, and back to the SM58, and back to the Rode NTG3. I think people tend to really fixate on the sensitivity of the mic, and they forget 2 of the most important things, which are the polar pattern and proper mic technique. If I come up right on this microphone, it's gonna sound a lot less roomy than if I have to crank the gain and I use it over here. And especially what people don't consider is the polar pattern. As I start to turn off the side, you're gonna notice it starts to disappear, right? As I come back, starts to come back and back and back, and here we are. And it's the very same thing with the shotgun microphone. In fact, this has a much tighter polar pattern even, so as soon as I start to get out of the shot, you'll notice like, wow, the sound really starts to drop off. But what's great about that is that means it's rejecting a lot of the sounds from the outside of the room. So you be the judge, you guys can decide which is best for you. If I had to put a mic right in front of my mouth, this is $100. I'd probably just use this, it sounds great. So you be the judge. Okay, myth number 4 is that sensitivity and microphone gain are the same thing. They're two completely different things, and sensitivity does not equal gain. You can't change the sensitivity of a microphone by turning up the gain. The sensitivity of the microphone is an inherent property of that microphone that doesn't change based on gain. So the day that a microphone leaves its factory is the day that that microphone is the most sensitive. And then as you start to, spit and sweat and humidity and dust gets on the diaphragm, it starts to become less and less sensitive over time. I talked about this a little bit in my last video, I linked that up here, but sensitivity and gain are two separate things. Gain is simply boosting the signal that came out of the microphone based on that microphone's sensitivity. So it's important to note they're two different things. You cannot make a microphone more sensitive. Okay, myth number 5, finally at the end here. Myth number 5, this is probably my biggest one. I know I said it wasn't in any order, but egg crates don't do anything for audio. I've seen so many people completely cover their rooms in egg crates or their shed, or their drum studio or music room. They don't do anything for sound. They do have one property that affects acoustics slightly, and I'll get to that in a minute, but they don't do anything for reducing sound pressure levels or reducing reverb time in your space. Okay, without nerding out too hard, when you're talking about like putting up acoustic paneling on a wall or something like that, the paneling has to be 1/4 of the wavelength that you're trying to eliminate. So let's take middle C for instance. If I'm trying to get rid of that note, that frequency, that wavelength is 4 feet 3 inches thick. So if I want to remove that note from my room, I basically need material that's a foot thick. If the material is any thinner, it's literally doing nothing for that frequency. It has to be 1/4 of the wavelength, which we just figured out is 4 feet. The one thing that they kind of do is because they have a unique shape, they're not just a flat surface, they will be able to bounce some higher frequencies in a variety of directions, which would be acting like diffusion. So for that reason, technically egg crates do a little bit of something for the sound in your room. If you had a plain room, just like a normal bedroom, and then you covered it in egg crates, I'd be willing to promise you that you wouldn't hear a difference. So something to take into consideration, egg crates, though they look flashy, they do absolutely nothing. You will see people using the like the under mattress pads that kind of look like egg crates. Those actually do work because they're thick enough that they'll actually do something for the frequencies in your space. Egg crates, nothing. Well guys, that's it for this video. I hope that you guys had fun going through these recording engineering myths. And of course, if you guys have heard any in your career, throw them down in the comments below. I'm really curious to see what you guys have come across and what makes you kind of scratch your head. So, but that's it for today's video. We'll see you guys in the next one.